Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. Of course, we've wondered about the issue and the impact of the government shutdown. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to slow things down for IRS as far as their audit is concerned. May slow things down as far as the rebates are concerned, or refunds. But we've been paying attention to the impacts of the shutdown. And joining us this afternoon is Brad Williams. He's the principal of Brad Williams Financial Services, and he has an observation related to what we experienced with the government shutdown. And with that, Brad, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. This issue of the shutdown, and I saw the email you sent out, and that was, this is an indication that the U.S. economy is not quite as resilient as we all anticipated. And I looked at that thinking, wait a second, we've seen a continued growth in job numbers. The businesses have gotten back with a certain degree of, restructuring necessary, but they're moving back on normal pace. And yet you saw something in this government shutdown that concerns you. Share with us what that is.
Well, I look at that on an individual basis. What I see is, although I deal with a lot of retirees that are in pretty good shape because they prepped, but I also am out in the public, and a lot of people are woefully unprepared for when a recession does come. When you look at the fact that so many people hardly even have $1,000 in the bank to handle any contingencies. There have been some. We were shut down here, and I'm in Huntsville, where all the NASA and so much is. We were shut down, and a lot of people just kind of used the opportunity to do chores and things like that. But a lot of people were hurt,
right?
And some of the banks and all started making, saying, "Hey, we're going to work with you on this," and so it's on an individual basis is where we have the problem.
This goes to the topic of preparation for retirement, but also for those unexpected tsunamis, those situations where we have no control over the circumstances. And with that said, it's challenging because of priorities. So many people have a confusion on what their priorities should be. And I know that growing up, one of the priorities that was, drummed into my head was the concept of pay myself first. Always
right.
Put some money aside for me, not to necessarily use, but specifically for me. And I'm wondering, we've seen stories now of efforts on the part of colleges and, in fact, high schools to establish a sense of economic education, that we need to teach people how to be economically wise. But in the midst of it all, it's also establishing priorities, is it not?
Exactly. It's all about priorities. You want to save first, invest second. You want to have about 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses stuck aside, and then that gives you the opportunity to save. Too many people, their only savings vehicle these days is their 401k.
Right.
So if they get in trouble, they got to take a loan, and you got all kinds of issues with that, or they got to make a withdrawal, and if they're below 59.5, they pay a penalty when they should be, putting as much as they can aside in the 401k, but also on their own. Don't leave a employer match unmatched.
Right.
But they also need to have other things as well.
Well, this goes back to the topic of a growing economy. We've come to the point where we look at the growth, and it continues to truck along in light of the fact that we've got concerns associated with the potential tariffs and conflicts with China, and of course now Europe and Brexit and all those other challenges. But the U.S. economy seems to be moving along at a very good pace. Does that result in us being lulled to sleep about the fact that there are potential, and I shouldn't say potential, but there are interruptions that are going to occur? Right now, we don't see it. And in the case of, no one would ever have expected a 31-day, or is it 33-day government shutdown. But we're looking at yet another potential shutdown in a few days with the president's conflict with Congress.
Yes, we are. And when we go back, so many people who were so used to using their homes as ATM machines back
Right.
in the, 2005, 6, 7, and then all of a sudden, bam, that ended. And then they had to retool, and a lot of people lost jobs. A lot of people had to do new careers, and you had all kinds of issues. They tightened the belt. They got back to work. They did a lot of things, and like you said, things are going good the last couple of years, and they're being lulled into a sense of complacency that they don't need to be, because the economy's dynamic. It's going to grow. It's going to contract. It's just going to do what it does.
I know, but amidst all of it, telling the story and getting people to believe that, in fact, the good times will not last forever is difficult. One of the things, I guess, is also playing a role in this is the changing economies in general. Recently, I thought it was interesting. Several people have made note of this to me about the commercials in this Super Bowl. And what was really catching the attention of the folks I was talking to was the number of commercials that utilized or included robots and robotic technology. And,
right.
This is another aspect of it. We're looking at a changing dynamic in the workplace. We're seeing the potential for jobs just absolutely disappearing. Is there an ignorance of that, or, if you will, avoidance of that fact?
No, I think you're right. And when you talk about, there's some of the schools around here, and I've been involved in some of them, teaching financial literacy to kids, which is sorely needed. And then when you think of things, I travel a lot, and you can literally go to the airport, and if you're not checking a bag, not talk to a human being till you get to the TSA line.
Right.
Whereas it used to be good paying jobs with the airlines and all. But, with all the automation, there still needs to be somebody to work on those, to build them. So what's demanded of Americans is that they've got to take their education more seriously.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a college degree. Technical degrees are phenomenal opportunities.
That's the other issue that I'm very disturbed with. And, of course, I've promoted this fact on my program, Viewpoints, on numerous occasions. Be surprised if I put the call out if somebody couldn't give me an answer as to what is the current state of college debt. And when you aggregate all the credit card debt in this country, college debt still exceeds that indebtedness by almost $2 billion. That's a stunning number. That brings me to the other point. How do we prepare for those negative experiences? And of course, yes, the observation is college is the answer, but it's not. How do you talk to your clients about preparing? What do you say to them that gets their attention?
Well, one of the things I do is I go through a process of finding out where they are. I look at myself as my client's financial GPS.
Mm-hmm.
A GPS tells you not only where you are, but where you're going.
Right.
So we got to find out where you are. And then we got to look at, okay, where are the weaknesses? Do you not have an emergency fund? Is your retirement fund inadequate? How do we make that up? So it's all about establishing where you are and then figuring out how to fix things that are broken and adjust things that need to be adjusted. And they have to be adjusted on a regular basis.
Okay, so in other words, you can't just simply say, okay, I'm going to set this aside and we're going to be prepared for the next calamity. You have to sort of, periodically review your emergency funding, for example.
Yeah, and with the way as I go to the GPS concept, my dad was a fighter pilot. I spent some time at FedEx when I was young, working aircraft and all that. And most people don't realize an airplane is off course most of the time.
Right.
But the GPS is actually bringing that nose right back on the compass heading when it gets crosswinds and tailwinds and turbulence and all that. And that's a financial plan. You have all kinds of things that are coming your way, and you got to make the subtle, small corrections on a regular basis and not wait to have to make the big ones.
Our guest this afternoon, Brad Williams, the organization Brad Williams Financial Services. Brad, do you think that the experience of the past month has gotten the attention of folks that they're thinking now that maybe there really is a need to begin planning for the next interruption, or will we get lulled to sleep again?
Now, I think there's some awakening going on, and I hate to use that term, but people are becoming more and more cognizant of it. And what I'm really liking is some of the, like I mentioned, some of the schools and all are really starting to focus on their high school kids and all knowing about checkbooks and knowing.
I think we lost our guest. Okay. Oh, you still back with me? Are you back with me? Oh, okay. We did. I'm going to take a quick break on that one. That was Brad Williams joining us just a few moments ago. And with Brad Williams Financial Services, he's written a piece recently noting that the recent government shutdown proved to us that we have been and are ill prepared for major interruptions, especially if we have another recession. You're listening to Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240.